This is the Lesbian Historic Motif Podcast, brought to you by Heather Rose Jones. The show looks at lesbian and sapphic themes in history and literature, and historical fiction with queer female characters, including fantastic versions of the past. We present research, interviews, news of the field, book listings, and original historical fiction for your enjoyment. For even more historic research, check out our blog. Welcome to On the Shelf for March 2025. If you'll forgive me for obsessing about it, it is exactly 2 months until my retirement date. Currently, it's a bit hard for me to think much about anything but getting all my day job projects finished or handed off, getting all my retirement financial arrangements in place, and, well, there are other significant distractions in the world at the moment. So I feel like these On the Shelf episodes have been stripped down to the bare bones lately. No new book shopping, no author interviews, no special book appreciation discussions, not much in the way of news of the field. I promise I'll have more brain and energy for enriching these roundup shows very soon. I do have an interview planned for next month as it happens. But there is one exciting piece of news in case you haven't visited the blog to see it. We have a fiction lineup. When I had my choices narrowed down to the top 6, I realized that I could take them all. 2 stories were short enough that, when combined, they still met the 5,000-word limit of my budget. And when I checked the calendar, I realized that I also needed a story for January 2026, a month with 5 Saturdays, which is when I air fiction. So here's the lineup, in alphabetical order by title. The release schedule has yet to be determined, but since the first story airs at the end of this month, it will be one that I do the narration for. A Falling Star and a Flying Bird by Rhiannon Grant. An Encounter with a Lady by Catherine Lundoff. Down by the Tumbling Stream by E.C. Hollowell. Ma'am, This is a Fruit Stand by Maya Dworsky-Rocha. The House of the Women by Janelle M. Ferreira. And Where You Go by Jennifer Nestoyko. The settings range from ancient Crete to the Victorian era. We have touches of fantasy, scenes of adventure and peril, and through it all, lives revolving around connections and loyalties and love. And there were so many stories I wished I could include. As I've mentioned on previous occasions, the surest way to get into the yes pile when I'm reading submissions is for the story to have exquisite writing that grabs me by the throat. Each of the stories in this year's season did just that. In February, the blog covered several articles in the collection Queer Iberia, Sexualities, Cultures, and Crossings from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, edited by Josiah Blackmore and Gregory S. Hutchison. Much like the collection Queering the Middle Ages, which I blogged last month, there was a disappointing lack of articles focused on women's same-sex relationships. The closest being 2 articles focusing on transmasculine figures, which were perceived as women by their societies. In the current month, I have lined up several articles from the collection Homosexuality in Modern France, edited by Jeffrey Merrick and Bryant T. Ragan, Jr. By modern France, the editors mean the 18th through 20th centuries, so definitely within the project's scope. I'm also listening to the audiobook version of Ann Chopa's TV tie-in book, Gentleman Jack, The Real Ann Lister, so I'll be blogging that as well, though not in the sort of detail I apply to academic works. Expect the blog to ramp up significantly in the coming months. Soon. So, you know how last month I commented on how few new fiction titles I'd found and how I expected there would be some catch-up on February books this month? Well, I only have 3 March titles, but a total of 22 new listings. And a lot of that is due to multiple releases by only a couple of authors, and I have some discussion on that, so I'll save those books for the end of the segment. In fact, let's start off with a group of short stories that have been released in ebook format. Canvas of Desire by Pippa Farthingale has a rather long cover copy for a short story. In the heart of a sleepy Midwestern town, where the rhythm of life was dictated by the rise and fall of the sun and the predictable cadence of gossip, Eleanor Vance felt an ache for something more. Cloaked in the constraints of her genteel upbringing, she drifted through gardens of roses and neatly trimmed hedges, struggling to reconcile the expectations of society with the powerful longing that stirred within her. Little did she know that a single art exhibit would shatter the facade of her everyday existence and lead her to the vibrant, uncharted territory of passion and self-discovery. As Eleanor stepped into the town hall that warm summer evening, the air thick with anticipation, she was drawn not only to the brushstrokes and colors that adorned the walls, but also to a captivating artist whose very presence seemed to ignite the space. Clara Dubois, a name whispered among the town's elite with both intrigue and disapproval, wielded her palette like a key, unlocking the desires stifled beneath the surface of propriety. In that moment, surrounded by the murmurs of the elite, Eleanor would find herself at a crossroads, poised between conformity and the exhilarating allure of forbidden love. What transpired next would forever alter the trajectories of their lives, casting them into a whirlwind of emotions that neither could have anticipated. Thus began the journey on the canvas of desire, where art became the transformative bridge between a constrained world and the untamed realm of the heart. My Heart on Your Sleeve by April Classen takes place in the 18th century, but the setting isn't entirely clear. At 16, Anne was in love with her best friend Isa. But Isa left her mantua maker apprenticeship to start a family with her new husband, leaving Anne heartbroken. 13 years later, Anne never expected it to be recently widowed Isa coming into her dressmaker's shop to apply for the apprenticeship on offer. Friendships are rekindled, and so are old feelings of love. But is Anne brave enough to give Isa her heart this time? Taking advantage of a February release date, we have Petals and Pages by T. Albright. For Teresa, more is riding on this Valentine's Day than the state of her heart. She's entrusted the fate of her struggling stationery store to the new craze for handmade Valentine's Day cards. Once a passionate artist, now all her focus is on making cards that people want to buy so she can keep her shop afloat for another week. But Teresa has also been secretly working on a Valentine's Day card for her sweetheart Susan to finally express the depths of her affection. When her project goes awry, Teresa's insecurities surface and threaten to ruin their evening. Will Teresa find the words to voice what's in her heart? Moving on to the novel-length works, The Art of Unmaking by Parker Lennox from Onyx Publishing should have been included in last month's listings, but it took me more time to track down a buy link for the book. In 1922 York, England, Clara Bennett knows exactly what she's supposed to be. Or, at least, she thinks she does. As a promising young artist at the prestigious Fleming Academy, she perfects her style through classical training. Her days are filled with strict rules, proper techniques, and the weight of her mother's expectations. But when she encounters the mysterious Evelyn Price at a controversial exhibition, Clara's carefully ordered world begins to unravel. Drawn into the mysterious Blackwood Society, Clara discovers art that defies reality itself. Torn between her rigid training and an intoxicating new freedom, she finds herself questioning everything she once believed. But the price of this freedom may be higher than she ever imagined, and the person she's becoming could be her very own undoing. Clara will have to decide how much she's willing to sacrifice for greatness. Because as her art transforms, so does her heart. But nothing in the society is quite what it seems, and some secrets are painted in shadows too dark to escape. I'm always interested in early medieval stories with solid historic grounding. So I could wish that The Smith by Maureen St. John could be purchased somewhere other than Amazon. For 8 years, Amma has been on the run and out of reach from the people who destroyed her life. Staying detached and moving quickly is all you can expect as a merchant-class woman with unnatural passions, even in the neglected areas of Gascony in the 800s. But now, a village that needs her skills, and more importantly, a woman who wants her heart, is trying to break through those walls. If they do, Amma is convinced disaster will follow. And if she learns the whole truth, Amma will lose her as well. Love and Rebellion, Forbidden Whispers No. 1 by Erica Schmidt, adds to the growing micro-genre of sapphic fantasy Viking stories. I have yet to encounter a sapphic novel set in early medieval Scandinavia that has a purely historic setting, but the mythic settings are very popular. In the unforgiving wilderness of Vestfold, Norway, where Viking clan laws reign supreme and a warrior's worth is measured by blood and steel, 2 shield maidens will ignite a rebellion that will challenge everything. Freydis and Thorarna, bound by a love more powerful than any weapon, more dangerous than any battlefield, forced into a life not of their choosing, traded like property in the brutal game of clan politics, they refuse to be silent. Mere breeding vessels? No, they are fire, they are storm, they are revolution. When rival warriors claim them during the sacred selection ceremony, Freydis and Thorarna make a choice that will echo through Viking history. They choose each other. Their love becomes a defiance, a burning challenge to every tradition that seeks to break them. But freedom comes at a price. King Harold's vengeance is swift and merciless. The blood eagle awaits those who dare to challenge the old ways. Hunted by their own people, pursued by Karina, a shield maiden consumed by a twisted obsession, their journey becomes a raw, unfiltered cry of female rage and unbreakable sisterhood. Some loves are whispered. Some rebellions are crushed. Theirs will be legendary. Lately, I've encountered a number of stories revolving around the affair of the poisons in the 17th century court at Versailles. This latest is The Witch of Versailles by Jessica Mason from Murmuration Books. At the dawn of the reign of the Sun King, an ambitious actress turns to magic to advance her dreams. Then poison to keep them alive. Claude de Van de Elletz rises from the bottom of Parisian society in 1660 to become both servant and lover to Madame de Montespan, a marquise with grand plans for a place in the new paradise of Versailles and the bed of Louis XIV. A spider in a web of court intrigue and secret affairs, Claude rises ever higher into the orbit of the king himself, but finds she must resort to dark arts and dangerous alliances on behalf of the woman she loves to stay in his golden light. Louisa May Alcott's novel, Little Women, throws out some intriguing sapphic vibes, especially in the semi-autobiographical character of Jo March. But in The Other March Sisters, by Linda Epstein, Ali Melanenko, and Liz Parker from Kensington Books, a different sister is the one who brings this story into our scope. I'm sure you believe you know their story from reading that other book, which told you an inspiring tale about 4 sisters. It told you a story, but did it tell you the story? 4 sisters, each as different as can be. Through the eyes and words of Jo, their characters and destinies became known to millions. Meg, pretty and conventional. Jo, stubborn, tomboyish, and ambitious. Beth, shy and good-natured, a mortal angel readily accepting her fate. And Amy, elegant, frivolous, and shallow. But Jo, for all her insight, could not always know what was in her sisters' thoughts or in their hearts. With Jo away in New York, pursuing her dreams of being a writer, Meg, Beth, and Amy follow their own paths. Meg, newly married with young twins, struggles to find the contentment that Marmee assured her would come with domesticity. Unhappy and unfulfilled, she turns to her garden, finding there not just a hobby, but a calling that will allow her to help other women in turn. Beth knows her time is limited. Still, part of her longs to break out of her suffocating cocoon at home, however briefly. A new acquaintance turns into something more, offering unexpected, quiet joy. Amy, traveling in Europe while she pursues her goal of becoming an artist, is keenly aware of the expectation that she will save the family by marrying well. Through the course of her journey, she discovers how she can remain true to herself, true to her art, and true to the love that was always meant to be. By purposefully leaving Jo off the page, authors Liz Parker, Ali Melanenko, and Linda Epstein give the other March sisters room to reveal themselves through conversations, private correspondence, and intimate moments, coming alive in ways that may surprise even daring, unconventional Jo. For a while, cross-time stories with parallel storylines in different eras seem to dominate these listings, though they haven't been as common lately. But this month turns up Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray from Farrar, Straus and Giroux. It was said that if you write to the bridegroom's oak, the love of your life will answer back. Now the tree is giving up its secrets at last. In 1940s Germany, Sophie is excited to discover a message waiting for her in the bridegroom's oak from a mysterious suitor. Meanwhile, her best friend Hannah is sending messages too, but not to find love. As World War II unfolds in their small town of Kleinwald, the oak may hold the key to resistance against the Nazis. In 1980s West Germany, American teen transplant Jenny feels suffocated by her strict parents and is struggling to fit in, until she finds herself falling for Lena, a punk rock girl hell-bent on tearing down the wall supporting West Germany from East Germany, and meeting Frau Herrmann, a kind old lady with secrets of her own. In spring 2020, New York City, best friends Miles and Chloe are slogging through the last few months of senior year when an unexpected package from Chloe's grandmother leads them to investigate a cold case about two unidentified teenagers who went missing under the bridegroom's oak 80 years ago. I'm not absolutely certain, but the description for Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen from Poison Pen Press is giving me definite Dracula vibes. The Netherlands, 1887. Lucy's twin sister Sarah is unwell. She refuses to eat, mumbles nonsensically, and is increasingly obsessed with a centuries-old corpse recently discovered on her husband's grand estate. The doctor has diagnosed her with temporary insanity caused by a fever of the brain. To protect her twin from a terrible fate in a lunatic asylum, Lucy must unravel the mystery surrounding her sister's condition. But it's clear her twin is hiding something. Then again, Lucy is harboring secrets of her own, too. Then the worst happens. Sarah's behavior takes a turn for the strange. She becomes angry and hungry. Lucy soon comes to suspect that something is trying to possess her beloved sister. Or is it madness? As Sarah changes before her very eyes, Lucy must reckon with the dark, monstrous truth, or risk losing her forever. For this next group of books, I want to talk about how the publishing landscape makes me paranoid. A couple of times previously, I've talked about encountering books that gave off strong, generated by AI vibes. I'm not talking about covers, but the text itself. So when I was researching new releases and I came across an author with no prior presence or other online footprint who released 7 titles within a single month, I definitely gave the books much closer scrutiny than I normally would. And that also pushed me to give closer scrutiny to the 3-title author and even a 2-title author, even though releasing 2 books in the same month wouldn't normally strike me as suspicious. So I checked all the reading samples and looked for other signs, such as releasing books across wildly different genres. The writing was not superb, but definitely not bot-like. So I asked my professional writers group for a reality check and learned that there's a specific indie writing strategy being recommended, where you release a lot of titles in a short period to get Amazon juice. So, okay, I guess? I confess I don't really understand the purpose of saving up 7 novels and then releasing them all at once, especially if you've never published before. Generally, it's a good thing to step up your writing chops with each new book. But you do you, if it works for you. But for what it's worth, for this particular book booster, coming out of nowhere and publishing a lot of books all at the same time does make me suspicious in the current circumstances. With that said, Marina Tempest has released a duo of decidedly alternate history romances in a series entitled Lesbian Pirates, which provide exactly what it says on the tin. It isn't clear if these have connected storylines. In Bitter Winds, Victoria Walsh lost everything when she was falsely accused of treason: her commission, her honor, and her family legacy. Now she commands a pirate vessel, leading her own loyal crew while searching for evidence to clear her name. She never expected her path to justice would lead her back to Eleanor Cavendish, the Admiral's daughter whose troubled eyes at Victoria's trial suggested she alone saw the truth. Eleanor has spent 6 months investigating the corruption that destroyed Victoria's life, gathering evidence against the powerful men who framed her. But when their worlds violently collide, they're forced to flee together into a storm that will either tear them apart or forge an unbreakable bond. Cursed Scar puts cold, cynical Captain Quinn Tanner in the path of Lady Diamond Haverford, a brilliant, beautiful noblewoman who is hiding dangerous secrets of her own. V.C. Sterling has burst onto the scene with 2 different series, which appear to be thematically connected rather than involving continuing characters or settings. There are currently 5 books in the Roses and Rebellion series, which all appear to have Victorian-era settings. In The Duchess's Companion, a widowed Lady Beatrice Pembroke fights against the expectation that she will remain in the shadows. Eva Blackwood, hired as her companion for her return to society, comes with secrets, including her attraction to her employer. Together, they navigate the treacherous world of aristocratic scandal, old enemies, and new conspiracies. In A Lady's Reckoning, Catherine Balfour escapes the clutches of London's most feared physician and seeks refuge in the misty streets of Bath. Hiding under a false name, she finds sanctuary at Eleanor Langston's clinic, a place where the city's forgotten can find healing. But safety is an illusion. The man she fled, Dr. Somerton, has eyes everywhere, and he will stop at nothing to reclaim his prized apprentice. Catherine and Eleanor must risk everything to expose his crimes. Lessons in Compassion pits Miss Eliza Townsend against Sophia Harcourt, sent as a council inspector to evaluate the orphanage Eliza struggles to maintain. As their battle of wills unfolds, so does an undeniable attraction, one neither of them can afford. In The Lady's Secret, Marianne de Lacy hides her scandalous past and uses her wealth to fund a radical new school for working women. But when rumors of her illegitimate birth begin to surface, her carefully constructed world threatens to crumble. Juliet Fletcher is a journalist who should be exposing Marianne, not falling for her. A Lady's Final Stand introduces that potentially unhistorical element of a female ex-soldier, though perhaps there's a background that makes the motif plausible. Margaret Hale, hired as bodyguard to Lady Beatrice Foswell, finds herself in a battle of wits with her employer among whispers of conspiracy in the halls of Parliament. V.C. Sterling's second series, Velvet and Vice, involves stories set during Prohibition at a speakeasy named the Velvet Viper. In Whiskey and Lace, Evelyn St. James is a socialite trying to escape the gilded cage of a respectable marriage when she meets Frankie Malone, a sharp-tongued, whiskey-slinging crime boss who rules her empire with steel and charm. The Velvet Viper returns as the setting for Gin and Sin, featuring a romance between dancer Dahlia LaRue and the club's enforcer, a woman of few words and fierce loyalty. Our final multi-book release is Delilah Kent's Regency-era Scandal and Sapphire series, which looks to be somewhat on the erotica side. In The Lady and the Thief, Lady Eleanor Harrington is betrothed to a duke, but when she catches a mysterious thief in her family's garden, her carefully planned world begins to unravel. The Heiress and Her Governess tackles the somewhat questionable topic of a governess-pupil romance, when Charlotte Fairchild takes responsibility for the rebellious heiress Isabel Sinclair. In The Widow and the Wallflower, Margaret Langley, newly freed from a cruel marriage, finds solace in the most unlikely place, a small bookshop tucked away from the watchful eyes of the Tome, where she encounters the proprietor, Eliza Finch. I placed one book in the Other Books of Interest category because although some reviews and lists suggest that the book has sapphic content, I can't find a trace of it, and the author's past releases have been similarly cagey on the topic. The Boxcar Librarian by Brianna Labuscus from William Morrow Paperbacks follows the career of WPA editor Millie Lang when she finds herself on the wrong end of a potential political scandal. She's shipped off to Montana to work on the state's American Guide series, travel books intended to put the nation's destitute writers to work. Millie arrives to an eclectic staff claiming their missed deadlines are due to sabotage, possibly from the state's powerful copper kings who don't want their long and bloody history with union organizers aired for the rest of the country to read. But Millie begins to suspect that the answer might instead lie with the town's mysterious librarian, Alice Munro. More than a decade earlier, Alice Munro created the Boxcar Library in order to deliver books to isolated mining towns where men longed for entertainment and connection. Alice thought she found the perfect librarian to staff the train car in Colette Durand, a miner's daughter with a shotgun and too many secrets behind her eyes. Now, no one in Missoula will tell Millie why both Alice and Colette went out on the inaugural journey of the Boxcar Library, but only Alice returned. And what have I been reading? Only a couple of audiobooks that past month. One of them was the second in a sapphic space mystery series by Malka Older, The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles. These are novellas set in a colony constructed around Jupiter after humanity fled an uninhabitable Earth. Murder mysteries get solved by a detective and academic duo who are also negotiating a revival of their romance. The books are enjoyable and have a fun time grounding the mysteries in the world building. I finally got around to reading the highly praised The Golem and the Genie by Helene Wecker, which came out a number of years ago. The novel asks the question, can a naive and brilliant golem who has lost her immigrant master on the voyage to America and a metal-working genie newly freed from magical entrapment find their way together in early 20th century New York and foil the schemes of the sorcerer who wants to re-enslave them both? This was beautiful and heartbreaking and ultimately triumphant, and I don't know what took me so long to come back to it, given that I've owned a hard copy since it first came out. I keep looking over to the bookcase in my home office that contains all the hard copy books I've acquired in the decade since I moved in, but have failed to read yet. Soon. Soon. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Lesbian Historic Motif Podcast. See the show notes for links to people and topics. Most shows will have a transcript linked as well. If you have a book announcement, a topic suggestion, or might like to appear on the show, please drop me an email. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate it and subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and consider supporting our Patreon.